Dean Tate knew a world of quiet ambition. He aspired to give voice to the poor as an attorney. That world shattered on a tranquil Sunday in December 1941. The Japanese assault on Pearl Harbor was a distant thunderclap. It irrevocably altered his trajectory. It pulled him from the Quaker peace of his Oregon home into the maw of war. His legal dreams, once so clear, crumbled under the weight of a draft notice. This was not the romanticized conflict of adventure stories, nor was it the clean, precise warfare imagined by strategists. This was a war of grim numbers and high-altitude terror. It was a war defined by a new, controversial doctrine: daylight precision bombing. The Norden bomb site was hailed as a miracle of accuracy. It was central to this strategy. It promised surgical strikes from 21,000 feet. Yet, it contributed to casualty rates that were staggering. Bombardiers like Dean faced a 16% chance of not returning. His last Sunday home was a tableau of innocence before the storm. It was a memory now overlaid with the metallic tang of fear. He stood with his frail father, William, his mother, Tracy, and younger brother, Wayne. They were at the Governor Hotel. A forced smile masked the tremor in his voice. He tried to reassure his father that the war would soon be over. Dean was inducted into the Army Air Corps in May 1942. A uniform replaced his civilian clothes. A haircut made him feel alien. A new identity was forged in a godforsaken place, hot and dry. This place was Wichita Falls, Texas. His family's letters would later become his lifeline. An empty chair at his college commencement was a silent testament to his absence. Initial idealism painted B-17 pilots as knights in a heavy sheepskin jacket. They were going forth to do battle against the forces of evil. This idealism would soon be stripped away. The raw reality of the Atlantic crossing and the desolate airfields of England would see to that. Dean's crew endured a harrowing 9-day transatlantic journey. It was a brutal initiation that left no room for romantic illusions. They arrived at Kimbolton Airfield to a chilling reception. The base was still scarred by the memory of Black Thursday. On October 14, 1943, over 100 men from their group vanished over Schweinfurt. The airfield exuded a pervasive dread. New replacements were met not with welcome. Instead, they saw the silent, haunted stares of veterans. Their faces were pale, their eyes hollow. The veterans seemed to look straight through them, as if they were already ghosts. The psychological toll of the bombing campaign was immense. It was a crushing weight of loss. Many airmen felt the war was over. They believed there were simply insufficient planes or men remaining. Dean's first mission to Bremen marked the beginning of his profound disillusionment. He had released his bombs. The return journey brought a sickening realization. Innocent people had been killed today. He had dropped the bombs that killed them. Colonel Preston made a stark admission. No more than 12% of our bombs are falling on the targets. The remaining 88% fall somewhere. Where? On civilians. This cemented Dean's growing cynicism. He felt like a fall guy. He felt like a Don Quixote tilting at windmills. He questioned the very purpose of their actions. This gnawing doubt culminated in a conversation with Reverend Powys Maurice, the vicar of St. Andrew's Church. Dean confessed his pacifism. He blamed politicians for the war, but the vicar offered a spiritual counterpoint. He urged Dean to fight, not for ideals or politicians. He urged him to fight for our very existence, for fellow man. He implored him to live as Englishmen, as Christians, and as gentlemen. He implored Dean to find purpose in fighting for others. He urged him to die with hearts and minds fixed on attaining an honourable goal. This perspective offered Dean a fragile anchor in the storm of his doubt. His own religion, he realized, was simply the hope of survival and returning home. The indiscriminate nature of the war was brought home to Dean. He met a Welsh hostess whose family had been obliterated by a Nazi raid on Cardiff. On January 2, 1941, a break in the weather allowed Nazi planes to bomb the city. 42 bodies were mangled and torn apart. It was a stark reminder of civilian suffering. Her story underscored the widespread, impersonal destruction that aerial warfare wrought. It was a mirror to the devastation his own bombs inflicted. As the campaign intensified, Dean's crew found themselves increasingly vulnerable. They were often positioned on the outer edge of their formation. This precarious placement, a late takeoff, or a slight deviation, could turn them into an easy target. This reality hung heavy in the air. They prepared for their next fateful mission. It was February 8, 1944. One moment, Lieutenant Dean Tate was a bombardier. He was suspended in the cold, clear air above France, a target. The next, he was a fallen man. He was slammed back first onto the frozen earth. The impact was an electrical shock that stole his breath. It left the sky a white blanket suffocating him. The chaotic descent and the burning wreckage of his B-17, the old fox, were now behind him. It was a smoking testament to the sudden, brutal shift from airman to evader. He was alive, but profoundly disoriented. His shoulders screamed from the force of his landing. His mind struggled to piece together fragmented memories. He lay, a vulnerable American in a land occupied by a ruthless enemy. It was a world away from the Quaker peace of his Oregon home. The fate of his crew scattered as violently as the plane's debris. Pilot Doris Beam emerged from the orchard. He had horrific injuries that left an eye hung onto his cheek in a bloody mass. He was a ghost commanding his men to save themselves. He was eventually captured along with gunners Lisandrello and Fotenaix. Their immediate struggle for survival ended in German hands. It was a grim testament to the overwhelming presence of the occupation. But others, by sheer luck or quick thinking, found a different path. Tail gunner Carl Mielke's own bomber was a flaming inferno. He landed precariously on a chicken coop. His descent was cheered by local children. It was a surreal welcome to occupied territory. Airman Bernier was fluent in French. Helsel navigated by a still-functioning compass. They found temporary sanctuary among tombstones in a cemetery. They hid as their aircraft was scavenged. Farmers eventually led them to safety. Dean himself was dazed and in excruciating pain. He found himself in a storage barn, covered in straw. His face was a grey pallor of death. His shoulder was oozing blood through shredded flesh and leather. He desperately needed medical attention. It was a stark reminder of his profound vulnerability. Across France, the German occupation had woven a suffocating blanket of fear and suspicion. The threat of discovery was omnipresent. It was fueled by the 10,000 francs offered for information leading to an airman's capture. This turned neighbors into potential informants. Yet, it was precisely this climate of oppression that galvanized a quiet, courageous resistance. For civilians like WWII, the sight of 3 parachutes with human forms dangling underneath was not just a spectacle. She was a young Belgian girl who had witnessed the terrifying Nazi advance firsthand. The parachutes in the alabaster sky were a call to action. Her journey to find Dean was a perilous dance through German patrols. She dodged danger. Her mind flashed back to 4 years ago. Nazi planes had fired on her own fleeing family then. When she found Dean, he was suffering from shock. His dog tag, Dean W. Tate, confirmed his identity. Her decision was immediate and profound. He can stay with such reprisals could mean the torture and death of entire families, or even whole villages. The Van Lever family opened their home to Dean, Bill, and Carl. Monsieur Van Leer had brought his family to France seeking refuge. Major Dame Van Leer struggled daily to feed her own family. Now she had 3 extra mouths from their meager supplies. Their small farm became a sanctuary. Daylight flickered between the wallboards of Dean's hiding place. It was a constant reminder of the thin veil of safety. Godelieve, just a girl, stood in the courtyard. She was directly under their window. Her presence was a shield against the ever-present German patrols. Life under occupation was a constant negotiation of scarcity and fear. Even keeping pigeons was forbidden and fiercely protected. Yet, amidst this grim reality, human connections could still form. Sometimes, they formed in unexpected ways. A young German soldier showed Godelieve a photograph of his child. He offered a poignant glimpse into the shared humanity beneath the uniforms. This led her father to remark, "They are people just like us with great affection for their children." Even figures like Clarice embodied complex realities of survival. She had ambiguous loyalties and a German officer waiting outside. Her actions highlighted the morally compromised truth that the closer you are to the enemy, the safer you are. In the Van Leer home, Dean found not just shelter, he found a profound testament to the resilience of the human spirit. It was a quiet, courageous defiance, born of compassion in the face of overwhelming danger. The ground underfoot was never truly solid, not in the shadow world of evasion. For Dean, Bill, and Carl, and for the growing number of downed airmen like them, every whisper was a potential thread. Every shifting glance was a thread in the nascent resistance network. This network held their lives in its fragile weave. Their journey was less a path than a series of desperate leaps. The urgent warning of Edmund Robert forced them into the damp, rat-scented confines of an abandoned World War I bunker. This was just one of countless other clandestine shelters. Each relocation was a fresh surge of adrenaline. It was a reminder that the sanctuary of yesterday could be the trap of tomorrow. They moved by the grace of farmers who shared meager meals. They moved by local members whose names they barely knew. These faces were etched with a quiet, fierce resolve. To be captured meant not just their own demise. It meant the unspeakable torture and death of those who had dared to offer a hand. These were not journeys of grand adventure. They were journeys of hushed footsteps on muddy roads. They were journeys of breath held tight in crowded train cars. They were journeys of faces, carefully blank. They were always aware that one wrong move, one suspicious glance, could unravel everything. As the war bled on, the German occupation tightened its grip. It was a desperate, brutal response to the growing whisper of Allied invasion and the burgeoning resistance. Their desperation for control manifested in escalating savagery. The airmen knew the Nazis were more dangerous. They knew this from hushed conversations and the haunted eyes of their helpers. The Nazis were expanding their systematic extermination not just of Jews. They were exterminating all enemies of the Third Reich. This chilling reality cast a long shadow over every act of defiance. It fueled the pervasive fear among the French who risked everything. In this climate, survival demanded complex, often morally ambiguous choices. Figures like Clarice epitomized this grey area. She had a stylish bob and the scent of intoxicating floral fragrance. Her German officer waited outside while she visited the Van Leer home. This was a stark reminder that the resistance was not a monolithic force of unblemished heroes. There were those, like Clarice, whose true allegiances blurred. They navigated the treacherous waters of occupation with strategies born of necessity. They embodied the brutal truth that the closer you are to the enemy, the safer you are. It was a testament to the messy human reality of war. It challenged any simplistic notion of a uniformly heroic resistance. Instead, it revealed a tapestry woven with varying motivations and compromises. Beneath the surface of constant movement, a deeper battle raged within the airmen themselves. The psychological toll of unending fear gnawed at their resolve. The gnawing ache of hunger became a constant companion. It was often masked by forced smiles. It was a dull throb behind their eyes, even when meager meals were offered. But perhaps most insidious was the burden of false personas. Dean, in particular, felt the weight of it. He was constantly performing as Louis Robert Roger Kervizic, a French gardener, yet his hands were far too clean. His smile was too American. He recalled Dupac's stern warning, "The French don't smile easily with people they don't know. Americans are always smiling." The photographer's curt "No smile please" for his fake ID photos echoed this. It was a charade that felt like its own form of torture. A constant fear of being found out wore down his spirit. It wore him down more than any physical hardship. For Dean, this internal struggle amplified his lingering survivor's guilt. It amplified the shame of his perceived cowardice. It was a stark counterpoint to the simple heroism he had once imagined. He questioned his worthiness. He believed others, like his lost co-pilot Bob Ross, deserved to live more than he did. The enforced silence further isolated him. The need to pretend to be deaf and mute when questioned deepened this isolation. It deepened the chasm between his true self and the carefully constructed facade. It revealed the complex, often painful emotional landscape of combat and evasion. The close call with French police officers Bosquet and Vasseur was terrifying. It was a sudden intrusion into the Van Leer home. It ripped away any lingering illusion of stable sanctuary. It was a stark reminder of how thin the veil of their safety truly was. It forced a rapid acceleration of escape plans that had felt agonizingly slow. Then came the crushing news. Their contact in Paris had been arrested. This betrayal exposed their meticulously planned route. It plunged the airmen into a profound uncertainty. Stranded and separated, Dean felt his future stretch before him. It felt pointless and uncertain. Yet, amidst this deepening despair, a flicker of recognition ignited a fragile hope. As the train groaned into Beauvais station, the familiar architecture offered Dean a moment of clarity. It was a fleeting echo of Timberline Lodge back home in Oregon. It was a small, almost insignificant detail, but it connected him to a world beyond the immediate terror. It was a reminder that even in the heart of occupied France, a path, however perilous, still lay ahead. The final metro inspection had been passed. It was a last, chilling reminder that freedom was never guaranteed. Dean and the other evaders emerged from the underground labyrinth of Paris. Their nerves were frayed, their bodies aching. They emerged into the cold, unforgiving light of a March morning. Each day in the occupied capital was a tightrope walk. It was a constant performance under the watchful eyes of the enemy. The noise of the city was a terrifying symphony. The clang of streetcars, the distant rumble of trucks, the ever-present chatter of French citizens. Each sound was a potential signal of discovery. René Loiseau, the young sailor, was thrust into the role of chief guide. He had proven himself indispensable. He navigated them through the dense urban landscape with a quiet, fierce resolve. Dean would later recall him with profound admiration. He called him the bravest man I've ever known. Life in Paris was a grinding psychological battle. The airmen scattered among safe houses. Each offered a fragile sanctuary, but each also brought a new set of rules, new faces, and new anxieties. Margot Di Giacomo was a Parisian, whose own life was a tapestry of loss and resilience. She housed dozens of airmen. It was a testament to the quiet courage of ordinary citizens. Her apartment, like so many others, became a nerve center. It was a hidden node in a vast, intricate network of defiance. The constant need for new identities weighed heavily on Dean. He was Louis Robert Roger Kvizek, a French gardener. But his hands, still soft from a life not spent in manual labor, betrayed the lie. Every interaction, every glance from a stranger, every passing German patrol brought a fresh surge of adrenaline. It brought a cold knot of fear in his stomach. The memory of Dupac's stern warnings echoed in his mind. The French don't smile easily with people they don't know. Americans are always smiling. This forced a blank, unreadable expression that felt like its own form of torture. Beyond their personal struggle, the city thrummed with a different kind of tension. It was the impending Allied invasion. Whispers of debarkment, the landing, were on every tongue. It was a desperate hope for liberation that also intensified German brutality. The resistance was a sprawling, decentralized force of ordinary men and women. It operated with a desperate urgency, pleading for weapons. Dupac, a central figure in their escape, had made it clear. When you return to England, tell them we need machine guns and explosives. The airmen had seen the devastation wrought by the occupation. They understood this plea. They felt the weight of the resistance's sacrifices. They knew the Gestapo had executed entire families for aiding evaders. This turned every act of kindness into an immense gamble. The brutal treatment of African soldiers forced into labor fueled the resistance's resolve. The execution of 50 hostages also fueled it. These grim realities underscored the immense stakes. Amidst this relentless pressure, a personal turning point unfolded for Dean's comrade Bill. His decision was to remain in France. He would embrace a life changed by the war. He would forge a future with Rolande Duval, André's sister. It was a stark counterpoint to the relentless drive for escape. For Dean, Bill's choice was a complex mix of understanding and bewilderment. Dean still grappled with survivor's guilt and a profound sense of unworthiness. It was a testament to the war's ability to reshape lives. It opened pathways to new beginnings, even in the shadow of destruction. As March wore on, the fragmented efforts of individual helpers in Paris began to coalesce into a more organized hope. The Shelburne escape line became the airmen's best chance for evacuation. It was a meticulously planned operation established by British intelligence, MI9, It was spearheaded by Canadian agents, Sergeant Lucien Dumais and signalman Ray Labrosse. This was not the ad hoc, desperate dodging of earlier weeks. It was a sophisticated, clandestine network. It was designed to shepherd Allied evaders to the coast of Brittany for sea rescue. It was a testament to the intricate planning and immense personal risks taken by hundreds of ordinary citizens. It was a far cry from any simplistic notion of heroic flashes. The line had already proven its worth. It had successfully returned dozens of airmen in prior missions. The order finally came for the move out of Paris. Dean, Carl, Van, and Everett left the city behind. Their forged papers were clutched tight. They left Bill to his new life. Their journey towards the Breton coast was a series of clandestine transports. It was a relay race of courage and trust. They were handed off from one resistance contact to another. Each face was etched with quiet determination. Each whispered instruction was a lifeline. The destination was clear, a remote stretch of coastline. It was a place known as Bonaparte Beach. The Shelburne network promised a British gunboat would be waiting there. The final leg of their gauntlet had begun. It was a perilous passage through the heart of occupied France. It led towards the cold, dark waters of the English Channel. It led towards the fragile promise of home. The German artillery fire was a sudden, terrifying crescendo of explosions across the Channel. It had momentarily silenced the whisper of hope on Bonaparte Beach. Evaders and guides alike froze, pressed against the cold rock face. The truth chilled them more deeply than the numbing water. Daylight, and with it, certain discovery, was only hours away. But Sergeant Lucien Dumais, code-named Captain Harrison, held his walkie-talkie. With calm resolve, he reassured them the gunboat was unhit. It was merely pulling back temporarily. The coded BBC messages had promised this rescue. They were a lifeline of Les Français parlant au français that had woven through the entire escape. Dumas was not about to let fear unravel it. After a grueling silent wait, the signal finally came. From the darkness, a masked flashlight cut through the gloom. Then, a blue-screened light followed. Like black phantoms, 5 wooden skiffs silently glided towards the sliver of beach. They came from the British gunboat 502, anchored invisibly at Littorio. Heavy suitcases were quickly loaded. They were filled not with personal belongings. They contained weapons and ammunition for the resistance. The order came. Wade into the numbing cold, thick water. Dean plodded through the sea. His terror of drowning was a visceral, suffocating certainty. The powerful current tugged at his ankles, threatening to pull him under. His fingers, stiff with cold, fumbled for the rope ladder, but strong arms reached out, pulling him aboard the gunboat. "Welcome aboard, sir," a voice said. "You're safe now." The words were a balm to his raw nerves. A blanket was draped over his shivering shoulders. A warm cup of coffee, sweet with cream and sugar, was pressed into his hands. The gentle purr of the motor drifted on the water like a lullaby. The reason for the German firing that night remained a mystery. It was lost to the Channel's dark embrace. On English soil, a hot shower and a delicious meal felt like luxuries from another lifetime. London, a city of bombed-out buildings and barrage balloons, became the backdrop for an intense interrogation. Dean signed an oath of secrecy during this 3-day period. He pledged 50 years of silence about the network and its heroes. His first thought was for Margot di Giacomo, the Parisian who had hidden him. He pleaded that no action be taken to jeopardize her, or the route still active. He longed to send a message home. He wanted to tell his parents he was alive, but he couldn't. His crewmates' fates prisoner of war, killed in action, or evader, were revealed on a single sheet of paper. Rescued from active combat, Dean transitioned to lecturing on escape and evasion. This new role kept him from the Pacific theater, but the experience had profoundly reshaped him. The cynical bombardier who once questioned the purpose of his actions now understood the interconnectedness of human sacrifice. He saw the war not just as a conflict of nations, he saw it as a testament to the quiet, desperate courage of ordinary people. The entire perilous journey had implicitly challenged any simplistic notion that escape routes were straightforward. It was fraught with near disasters and constant tension. It was a testament to the Shelburne network's effectiveness. This network was woven from the threads of countless individual acts of defiance. The liberation of Godeliev's village by the United States Army on September 3, 1944, marked the end of immediate danger. But it was not the end of the story. Dean was released from active duty on Christmas Day, 1945. He transitioned into a life of intelligence and education. His wartime experiences forged a deeper understanding of human resilience and the complexities of conflict. For Godelieve van Leeuwen, the young girl who first found Dean, her life took a different path. A formal portrait of her at age 10, pre-war, captures an innocent gaze. It was a world away from the desperate dance with German patrols and the profound choices she would make. She would go on to become a successful businesswoman. But the scars of occupation ran deep for many. Maurice Duval, Dean's French helper, later wrote to Dean's parents. His words were a confirmation of the danger they all faced. They were also a confirmation of the unforgettable bonds forged. "You will always have good friends in France," he wrote. Decades later, in November 2003, Dean's daughter, Susan Tate Ankeny, discovered a box. It was among her deceased father's belongings. It contained a memoir, mission reports, and letters from the resistance. This was her turning point. It ignited a quest to uncover the full story and honor the forgotten heroes. On February 23, 2010, Godelieve van Leeuwen wrote to Susan. She expressed profound gratitude. "Never can we forget the sacrifice from the American people," she wrote. "It was for us a great honor to help your courageous boys." The author's journey to France in May 2011 became a bridge connecting past to present. It was a decade-long odyssey of research and discovery. She stood on Bonaparte Beach, imagining her father's terror. She met the descendants of those who aided him. These included Viscount Roland du Pontevice, René Loiseau's son, and André Duval's children. Finally, she met Godelieve van Leeuwen. She was now an elderly woman with hair like a white flag. Her gnarled hands were a testament to a life of hard work, but her eyes shone with undiminished intensity. Godelieve entrusted her journal to Susan. She declared, "The American boys saved us with no thought for themselves. Future generations should know. We must rely on each other. Tell them we are stronger together. Tell them." Emotional reunions of airmen and their French helpers occurred over the years. Carl Mielke and Godelieve reunited in 1969. Dean and Godelieve reunited in 1996. Dean's stolen dog tag was returned in 1991. These symbolized reconciliation and remembrance. They echoed Godelieve's powerful statement of unity. The author's own existence, dependent on Dean's survival, became a poignant testament to the ripple effect of individual acts of bravery. The Shelburne Escape Network was a triumph of human ingenuity and compassion. It never lost an Allied evader in its 6 nighttime rescues. It spirited 135 men to safety. Its enduring legacy is not merely in the numbers. It lies in the profound human connections forged in adversity. These connections transcended nationality and wartime animosity. It is a story of courage, sacrifice, and the quiet, fierce resolve of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. It influences future generations to understand that even in the darkest of times, we are stronger together.